Thank you guys for having me here. It's a great honor. I missed the first conference, but I heard so many good things that I decided I cannot afford to miss the second one. Well, I'll be telling you today about my computational psychology studies, and I probably don't really have to spend too much time convincing this crowd that we are now surrounded by digital products and services and in a process of using them sometimes actively, sometimes passively, like passing next to the CCTV camera or just being a part of a picture that someone else has taken, that we're inevitably leaving an enormous amount of digital footprints behind every single day. Now, back in 2012, IBM estimated that an average human being leaves behind 500 megabytes of data every single day. Now, to help you imagine how much data it is, let's run a short thought experiment. Imagine that you wanted to back up just 1 day worth of data that humanity produces and print it out on an A4 or letter-sized paper just like this, double-sided, single-lined, Times New Roman, size 12, with zeros and ones. How tall would be the stack of paper, just single day of data that humanity produces? To the moon. We are at the right scale of things. More than that. 6 times to the moon. More than that. It will be like from here to the sun 4 times over. And it's 2012. It's a long time ago in an information age. Fast forward to 2025, The Economist recently estimated that we'll be leaving 62 gigabytes of data per person per day. This is an enormous amount of data. But it's also great news for computational psychologists like me. It's a great time to be a computational psychologist. Thank you, guys. And so today I will tell you a bit more about what you can learn from this data. And one area of research that I engage in is trying to take digital footprints that people leave behind and try to predict their future behavior and reveal, expose their intimate traits. And let me start with a short video that reports on the results on one of our early studies. We took around 60,000 people. We got a bunch of their psychological traits measured with psychometric questionnaires such as personality, intelligence, happiness, but also some demographic variables such as political views, religiosity, sexual orientation. Those things were recorded either in self-reported surveys or from their Facebook profiles. And we got their Facebook likes, and we built simple prediction models, cross-validated prediction models that were predicting those intimate traits from those people's Facebook likes. And let me show you a video that discusses the results.
Clicking like on Facebook is something most of us do without thinking.
The University of Cambridge over in London actually did a study of what people like on Facebook to try to find facts about them that they wouldn't otherwise know. So they didn't just look at the products, the movies, the bands that people like. They also looked at the status updates that people liked, the photos that people liked. And they were able to draw some really, really interesting conclusions about
all of your likes that you're clicking can tell more about you than you might have realized, from your political values to your religion, to your gender, to your happiness, to your age.
In fact, some parts of your identity can be predicted with 95% accuracy.
Accuracy was lowest, about 60% when it came to predicting whether a user's parents were still together when they were 21. People whose parents divorced before they were 21 tended to like statements about relationships. Drug users were ID'd with about 65% accuracy, smokers with 73%, and drinkers with 70%. Sexual orientation was also easier to distinguish among men, 88% right there. For women, it was about 75%. Gender, by the way, race, religion, and political views were predicted with high accuracy as well. For instance, white versus black, 95%.
The findings of alarmed privacy campaigners who fear this research could be used to commercially exploit users.
So keep in mind that just because you think you're not revealing a lot of personal details on Facebook, you're still spreading the word to the outside world as well as those online marketers.
Volunteers with few friends liked walking with your friend and randomly pushing them into someone or something. Hey, it's not their fault they don't have friends. Everyone they know keeps getting randomly pushed into traffic. High IQ corresponds to liking Mozart, science, and the Colbert Report.
Research indicated people who like Harley-Davidson motorbikes are generally of low IQ. We thought we'd better offer a right to reply.
I'd say our average customer is probably more intelligent than most. We've certainly got a lot of customers who are people from Cambridge University for a start.
A like on Facebook can reveal if you're a gay man. Yeah, especially if what you choose to like is penises. Wife walking in, I'm like, oh! It's a joke.
Okay. By the way, don't be an idiot and think that if somebody clicked on Wicked the Musical that they're gay automatically, or they clicked on Harley Davidson and they're stupid automatically. Ironically, that would make you stupid.
So as you guys can see, you can take this seemingly innocent piece of digital footprint. You know, no one really likes anything overly intimate on Facebook. You don't like things related to sexuality or the drugs you are taking, and most of us at least don't do it. And yet, these innocent pieces of digital footprints, if you look at large enough sample, can be really revealing about your intimate traits. And there's obviously a question, how does a model like this work? And I have a short equation here for you that will make things clear. But before we go there and analyze this equation, let me give you one practical example. Imagine an anonymous person, you don't know anything about them apart from the fact that they like brand Hello Kitty. Now, what is the age and gender of this person? Thank you, so judgmental. So judgmental, because in fact, the person that has most Hello Kitty toys in the world is this retired Japanese man. But, well, you're right. So 99% of people who like Hello Kitty are female, and young female to it, which basically means that if you know nothing about someone, but you know that they like Hello Kitty, it's a safe bet that they are female. What is their job? Are they working in sales or in the military? Sales. We have some psychologists in the room, it turns out. Great. They work in sales. They're unlikely to work in military. Would they use an iPhone or a PC? Of course, no self-respecting Hello Kitty fan would ever touch a PC. So as you guys can see, just from one single like, you can learn a lot about psychodemographic traits of an individual, and you don't really need to be a computer algorithm to do that. Now, in real life, when you look at people's Facebook likes, they're not as extreme as Hello Kitty. Hello Kitty attracts a very particular audience, which means that if you know that someone likes Hello Kitty, you kind of know a lot, at least about their gender and age. Now, in most cases, likes are more like Forrest Gump. Most of us like Forrest Gump, and if you don't like Forrest Gump, we probably are not going to go to the same party together, because it's an awesome movie. But most of the people like Forrest Gump, but you can still see that there is some bias here. You can see that men, and especially men that are above 35 like me, are slightly overrepresented among fans of Forrest Gump. So if I told you that there's this anonymous user and they're like Forrest Gump, well, you wouldn't know much about them, but you'd know a tiny little bit. And now this is one place where algorithms have a huge advantage over us, because algorithms can spot those little tiny statistical patterns that we don't really care about as much, or maybe we can't see them, right? You don't walk around and keep notes on which of your friends likes Forrest Gump, and then you don't run, tabs on this table. I mean, probably if you study movie taste, then maybe you do, but most of us don't. So the first advantage of a computer algorithm is that it can very easily spot those patterns. Now, the second advantage of a computer algorithm is that then it can extract useful information from such crumbs of information that are in the fact that you like Forrest Gump or any other Facebook like, right? Because just liking Forrest Gump does not mean that now we can, with high accuracy, estimate your gender. But looking at tens or hundreds of your Facebook likes and extracting this little piece of information, little piece of signal from each one of them and adding it together, you can arrive at the very clear and very accurate prediction. So now the question, of course, is how accurate are such predictions? And I have this plot here for you. On the x-axis, you have number of Facebook likes. It's log scaled. And on y-axis, you have accuracy, which is expressed in this case as a correlation between the prediction and the self-reported score estimated using a 100-item long personality questionnaire. And as you can see, the more likes you can record from someone's profile, the more accurate the prediction would be. And those of us who have ever developed or worked extensively with personality questionnaire would see that this is actually pretty good of an accuracy, right? Short personality questionnaire would be less accurate than 0.6 or 0.5 when measured by test-retest accuracy. But now for those who don't, I don't hear many wows here in the room, so I presume that it's just Oliver that he just quietly said wow there. So let me show you another example, another illustration of how accurate it is. So in one of the studies, we decided to compare the accuracy of like-based predictions with the accuracy of the predictions made using a very accurate personality prediction tool, which is human beings. We are amazing at predicting other people's personality. We evolved to do that. It's crucial to for our survival. If you can quickly detect whether this new person that you have met is aggressive or not, is reliable or not, that basically really greatly improves your chances of maximizing the value of the interaction or running away. So now, so what we did here, we took 50,000 people roughly, and then we measured their personality using a questionnaire, then we measured their personality using their Facebook likes, and then we asked their friends, family members, co-workers to judge their personality using a 20-item long questionnaire. Now, how many likes do you think we need to reveal to an algorithm for an algorithm to be as accurate as your work colleague when judging your personality? 10. Great. Amazing. How did you know? It's precisely how many likes you need to reveal to an algorithm. Now, if you want to outperform friends or a family member, you need around 100, 150 likes. And this is basically how many likes a 16-year-old person today produces per hour. So it's not really so much. And then to outcompete the most accurate of human judges, your spouses, your intimate partners, you need around 250, 300 Facebook likes. And now look, guys, this is really exceptional, because this means that in a simple algorithm, this is just an equation, this is just multiplication and adding stuff up, based on pretty vanilla type of digital footprints, Facebook likes, can know you better than your own spouse. And when I say know you better, psychologists and others immediately get offended. But hey, let's just calm down for a second. Well, you're not really offended, so I shouldn't probably be saying this. But think about it for a second. Let's define what does it mean to know someone. If I know Arthur, I should be able to predict what Arthur will do in a new situation. I should be able to predict what Arthur would answer to a question, I like poetry, or I'm always on time on the meetings, or I like hanging out with my friends in the coffee shops, right? So being able to predict what his preference for such behaviors would be could be treated as a definition of knowing him. And it seems that an algorithm can know Arthur better than I could. Well, we are like family with Arthur, so given that an algorithm could see 100 of his Facebook likes. This also means that an algorithm can predict your future behavior better than your spouse, right? Because your spouse trying to predict what your responses to a questionnaire would be is essentially predicting your future behavior. I got some extra time, just saying, from Nate. Thanks, but thanks for reminding me. Okay, guys, and I encourage you to try. You have to carry me out here by force. Okay, you can test what your like-based personality is on this website, applymagicsauce.com. It's hosted by University of Cambridge. But of course, there's a bunch of other organizations and companies that now would use similar technologies to judge your personality using Facebook likes or other types of digital footprints, like your language. Your language is way more revealing about your personality than your Facebook likes. It can be very easily recorded, transcribed. We send text messages, tweets. Many of the messages that we send using, let's say, email are much more intimate than whatever you would ever like on Facebook, which means that those predictions are even more accurate. The same relates to your web search history, your browsing history, what you're doing with your smartphone, and so on. And finally, one other type of I should mention, again, there are APIs out there, algorithms out there like IBM Watson that enable you to turn your samples of digital footprints, in this case language, into predictions of people's personality traits. Now, something that I recently got interested in and something that Porus already mentioned earlier today, but I again did not hear any wows, so I hope now it will elicit some wows from the audience for Porus here, is that you can predict personality and other psychological traits from digital images of people's faces. And we have discovered it more or less by accident. So I was working actually with Sam Gosling, and we had this idea that if you took profile pictures of people from their social networks, that you can now look at the background. You know, some people would take an image at the party, some other people would take an image somewhere in the basement while playing computer games, some people would, I don't know even what they would do, but basically the idea was if we could look at the background, we probably could predict people's personality. So we started putting pictures on top of each other, and this is what happened. What you can see here is 10 images of introverted women and 10 images of extroverted women overlaid on top of each other. You can clearly see which of these groups is introverted and which one is extroverted. You can see that extroverted women are smiling, have makeup, have very different hairdo, have dyed hair. You can see it's much more blonde than here. It's probably also a better of a hairdo. I don't want to be judgmental here, but there's a difference there. You can also see that extroverted women have no nostrils. Now, does anyone have any idea why extroverted women have no nostrils? Thank you, guys, because they know how to take a selfie, of course. If you're extroverted, you know how to take selfies. Now, interestingly, when you look closer, you can also see morphological differences between those faces. You can see differences in the shape of the jaw, of the length and shape of the nose, and so on. And it turns out the computer algorithm can look at those images, as Porus explained it to you earlier today, and predict people's personality based on those images, even if we humans, we can't really do it as well. Now, why is that so? Precisely due to the same mechanism as in the case of Facebook likes. I reveal to you I like Forrest Gump, you know very little, if anything, about me. Now, you reveal the same fact to a computer, and an algorithm can spot those little tiny patterns and statistical dependencies that allow an algorithm to make accurate predictions from seemingly not very revealing data. And again, there are commercial products out there, in this case Microsoft Cognitive Services, that can turn images of faces into predictions of psychological states in this case, but psychological traits are not far away. And now let me tell you about two, and I will try to keep it very short, two, I think, pretty significant applications of this technology in the real world, and one, of course, is in marketing. We know that personality affects our choices and preferences. Some people would just say that personality is just describing variance in our choices, behaviors, and preferences, which means that it's really useful to know your consumer's personality. Because if you know your consumer's personality, you not only are able now to choose the product they'll go for, right? If you have an extroverted, disagreeable young man, what car do you want to sell them? Pardon? A BMW. I didn't. A young, disagreeable man. There's a different word for men like this, but yes, they would like a BMW. But also, even if you want to sell them the same product, like let's say cosmetics, we all use hopefully some cosmetics, and now when you are selling them to people, you can use different language, different message, different image, depending on whether you're talking with an introvert. Beauty doesn't have to shout, and you're alone here. You have good time with your mirror versus, love the spotlight and feel the moment, right? Now, this has tremendous matching the personality of your consumer with the personality of the message while selling the same product has a tremendous effect on the outcomes. What you can see here are conversion rates. So how many people that have seen an advert actually bought a cosmetic? So this number here is really small because, you have basically 4 to 6 people in 1,000 that would actually buy a product after being shown an advert on Facebook. But what you can see here is that if you show an introverted ad to an extrovert, it will be much less efficient than when you show it to an introvert and the other way around. And the difference is up to 1.8. It's huge when you think about online marketing, and you can get 80% more from your $1 million that you spent. You basically saved however many, $450,000, right? And the same applies to return on investment, and it's being already used like it's being used in politics. Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, some people would say that this is basically the tool they use that kind of brought them to the victory. I don't agree with that, and we can have a discussion about it later on today, but they clearly were using psychological micro-targeting. By the way, psychological micro-targeting that got pioneered by Barack Obama quite some time ago in their campaigns, driving the costs of the campaigns and the success rate in their communication down. And now the last point that I want to make today, Nate, I'm really sorry, I'm probably 2 minutes over time now, is that another outcome, another consequence of those algorithms now being able to predict our psychological intimate traits from our digital footprints is that we are basically losing our privacy, right? We're leaving an increasing amount of digital footprints online, and algorithms are getting better at turning those footprints into predictions of our future behavior and intimate traits, right? So now if you, of course, if you write on Facebook or tweet, I'm left-wing or I'm right-wing, there's no science fiction. You don't need an algorithm to predict now what your political views are. But now if the same knowledge about your political views, sexual orientation, and whatnot can be drawn from the movies that you're watching, the books you're reading, or the pattern of word use when you're not talking about politics, is a huge risk to privacy. And we talk a lot about how we should implement privacy-protecting algorithms and privacy-protecting laws, and we probably should be talking about it, but there's one problem, which is even the governments cannot protect successfully their data. So now, what makes you think that you or me would be able to suddenly prevent a motivated party, like a Russian government, for instance, to look and record our data, however much encryption you put on top of it? Not to mention that even if you somehow magically gave me full control over my data, there's still a lot of data that I want to share. I want to share my tweets with you guys. I want to be able to write my blog. I want to be able to walk the streets without covering my face. And now this sounds like, okay, maybe we should just accept that and put up with a bit of creepy marketing, but it's not just creepy marketing. And those two faces here, they represent two groups of males that differ on one psychodemographic variable. Any idea what this variable is? No, you should know by now. Thank you. We have computer AI stereotyping gay faces and straight faces. And in fact, computer algorithm can predict whether a male can distinguish between gay and straight male with over 90% accuracy given 5 facial images, which when combined with this map showing you where on our beautiful planet being gay is punished with a gay penalty, clearly shows that losing privacy is not just some creepy marketing or maybe Donald Trump getting 1% more votes. It's literally a matter of life and death, which brings me to an absolute last point here, is that we should talk about privacy-protecting technologies, but we should not get distracted by this conversation. We should keep in mind that it's quite likely, I totally believe that we have no way, but we are going to lose our privacy. And the sooner we accept the fact that whatever we do, we're going to lose our privacy, the sooner we can sit down and start talking about how to make sure that the post-privacy world is a safe and habitable place to live. Thank you, guys. I'm really hopeful. So I think that, yes, we lost our privacy in many ways. A motivated party can know virtually anything about you. It's just getting easier and easier, so you need less motivation to do it. And this is terrible. This is why I'm studying this, on one hand. But on the other hand, it gives me hope, because think about it for a second. Once you remove privacy, let's say, of sexual orientation, there's no way sexual orientation stops being a taboo subject. And we have seen it in America. Privileged gay people in America 10, 20, 30 years ago gave up their privacy. They paid the price for giving up their privacy. They lost professional opportunities. They were kicked out from their communities or churches or whatnot. But they removed the taboo subject. And today, thanks to their actions 20, 30, and 10 years ago, even people living in less tolerant parts of American society can come out as gay and not fearing about their lives, as was the case a few years ago. And I believe that even in Saudi Arabia, if suddenly on one day everyone lost the privacy of their sexual orientation, and people realized that 7% of the neighbors, 7% of the rulers, 7% of their cousins, 7% of the princesses out there in Saudi Arabia are gay, I think that their appetite for burning them at the stake or wherever they would just basically decrease. I try to prevent corporations from manipulating us by spreading the news about what they are already doing and have been doing for many years, and I'm paying a significant price for doing that. You don't, death threats, being uninvited from conferences because people misread the study and they don't realize that algorithms that I'm presenting here are not algorithms that I created. Those are algorithms that are already being widely used by governments and startups. And I know for a fact that they are using those algorithms to detect, to try to find criminals. And being a criminal in Saudi Arabia is defined as being gay, as well as other things. And now knowing that, I feel that I need to warn the people. Now people think, oh, he's probably developing it for companies and corporations, so why don't we send him a death threat? So that's a great question. I don't. Yeah, I know, of course. And so the question basically, to amplify it a bit here, is whether it's facial morphology or grooming and what we do to our faces that drives the predictions. It seems, and again, I don't have data that will allow me to conclusively distinguish between those two things, because it's basically very difficult to collect such data in an ethical way. But from the survey of the data I collected, and I encourage you to look at the paper, we try to kind of dive deeper into precisely this question. It seems that it's both. That it's facial morphology, like straight people would tend to have different shape of the jaw, different shape of the nose. There's some difference in the composition of the skin as well, which also makes sense because testosterone would change the collagen composition underneath your skin. But there's also clearly culture So let's say how people go about shaving or what do they wear on their head. And our interesting thing that we found, let's say in our studies of personality, where we looked at faces from Facebook, where people can smile and wear whatever they want, and compare them with faces taken, pictures taken in the lab, where people have neutral face and the hair is covered, is that when you train the algorithm on a Facebook data, then it picks up on smiling, for instance, and predicts that if you're smiling, you're more likely to be an extrovert. But then if you train the model or give the model data collected in the lab where smiling signal, emotional signal is not available, the prediction accuracy would not go down by much. It's just that the algorithm will start using other types of signal in making predictions. It's very much like in regression. If you have correlated variables, the algorithm will like pick one, but if you remove this one, the algorithm will just basically pick up another one. See that. We thought, to make a fair comparison between the model and humans, let's try to train humans to be able to predict those traits. Now the problem is that if you take 50,000 users from Facebook and you take all of their likes, there's 15 million unique likes. So no human being could ever develop, any significant intuition about any significant fraction of this amount. So, but what we're thinking about doing now is try to see whether you can train people to, let's say, detect political views from faces by basically correcting them when they make a mistake and see whether, brain somehow picks up. That's an interesting question, but there's obviously an ethical question. Is it even okay to go there and try to see whether we can train people to be better at invading others' privacy?